Hi everyone, Pastor Matt here with another weekly encouragement video. I just wanted to share with you this week a little bit about how it's interesting how our experiences of a situation change over time, and how interesting it's been for me to realize that people are experiencing, even though they're in different situations, there seem to be certain time frames where people experience similar things. And it seems like over the last week, a lot of people have started to shift from this phase of, making the most of their time at home, maybe attending to some of the jobs that, you might have had that you've been putting off to do around the house, to a stage where, actually we've had enough time to do most of those things. And now, if we're stuck at home, there's not really so much to do that feels useful to fill my time. And so more people are starting to feel frustrated by the fact that they're stuck at home with not much to do. And it got me to thinking that there are sometimes spiritual things that we put off in our own spiritual life that probably need tending to. And I just wanted to bring our attention back to a reading that we had in our service, not just this last Sunday, but the one before. It comes from 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15, and it says, "But in your hearts sanctify Christ as Lord. Always be ready to make your defense to anyone who demands from you an accounting for the hope that is in you." Making a defense, I guess, can sound like a daunting task, especially if you're like me, and when you start talking about a defense, you start to imagine those classic lawyer movies or TV shows, those ideas where you've got a defense team of lawyers sitting around a table over a lot of late nights and take away Chinese containers, trying to plan how they're going to defend their client in the courtroom. But I guess, what we're talking about here in this passage is not really quite that involved. I think one way to think about it is simply to try and make sure that you've got an answer to this question: why are you a Christian? You see, here's the thing. I think a lot of us sometimes get worried that we don't know enough of our Bibles, or we don't have enough theological training to answer people's difficult questions when it comes to faith. And it's true, certainly, that the more we know of Scripture, the easier that's going to be. And Paul certainly tells us in his second letter to Timothy that all Scripture is useful for teaching and reproof and correction and training in righteousness. But at its core, Scripture is a record of the history of God's relationship with His creation, and in particular with humanity. And while the words of Scripture might end with Revelation chapter 22, verse 21, the story of God's relationship with His people is still being written and lived out in you and me, in our lives as part of God's family. Our lives are a first-hand account of the life lived in the resurrection power of Jesus Christ, a life lived connected to our Creator who loves and cares for us. Your life is a part of God's story of salvation because He saved you, and you're part of His plan of redemption. So it doesn't really matter if you've been a Christian all of your life, or if you've had some kind of dramatic conversion experience from some point later on in your life. The reason that we have faith in God and hope in God is because we've been lucky enough, or we've been called by God to encounter the life and love and grace and forgiveness that He offers to each of us through Jesus Christ. So I guess that means my encouragement for us all this week is to spend some time, perhaps even go as far as actually writing out what you might say to somebody if you were ever asked, "Why are you a Christian?" I know it doesn't seem to happen very often these days, but wouldn't it be terrible if somebody did ask that very question, earnestly wanting to know, and we just drew a blank because we didn't know what to say? Yeah, you might even consider calling one of your friends from church and asking them to listen as you share the answer that you've prepared. There's a lot of good reasons for doing that. It's of benefit to you as you learn to tell your story in a way that people can listen to easily. But it also helps us to deepen our relationships and our understanding of each other. So yeah, let's spend some time this week making sure that we're ready to share the good news and the hope that's in us when we're asked. And I'm sure that as you do that, you'll also be blessed yourself as you begin to realize again or remember all of the ways that God has blessed you in your life and been a part of your journey. Well, that's all from me this week. I hope you all have a blessed week as you think about God's interaction with you in your life. And we'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.